Hey, welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. So the latest game of the century came and went in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. The buildup was unreal for this. Alabama versus Vanderbilt in Bryant-Denny Stadium. ESPN College GameDay was in town for this. Would the Crimson Tide get revenge on the Commodores, shut up their starting quarterback, Diego Pavia, for good? Unless, of course, he comes back for a 17th year of eligibility. He gets one more shot at Alabama and Nashville in 2026. We'll see. But the answer is yes to both of those questions. Alabama beat Vandy. History did not repeat itself unless that history parallels Johnny Manziel's with Alabama, that he shocks them one year and then loses the next. This either puts Pavia in league with Johnny Football, or he's on this esteemed list alongside Steven Garcia, Zach Calzada, Bo Wallace, Trevor Knight. I would say Nick Marshall, but he at least led his team to a national title game. There's a lot to sort through here in the aftermath of Alabama's monster win over Vandy. Alabama's 4-1, 2 SEC wins. They've got Missouri on the road this week. Ty Simpson looks like a contender for this big college football award. And just like in 2024, everything is right in front of Kalin Deboer in Alabama. They passed a big test on Saturday, but can they maintain the momentum? And we needed some help to sort all this out. We called in the big house this time. Michael Casagrande with AL.com. Welcome back. And we've also got Beat Everyone producer Matt Scalisi. Michael, how are you?
I'm great. I mean, I don't know what else we have to say after that. I think he pretty much summed up the whole thing. I think we can call it a day, and
all right. Well, you can catch
go about their day.
You can catch Beat Everyone anywhere you get your podcasts. Thanks, Michael. I am curious, because Diego Pavia was the story with this game. I mean, could Alabama beat Vanderbilt? Could they beat Alabama 2 years in a row? But what's your Pavia takeaway after Saturday, at least in relation to Alabama? Like, if he had beaten Alabama 2 years in a row, people said Vandy should build the statue by Sunday. Didn't happen, obviously. It was competitive for 20 minutes, and then he was awful in the second half. After all that trash talk, he and his teammates. So is Diego Pavia, is he a thorn in the Crimson Tide's side, or just a footnote now in Alabama history?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it started out pretty well for him. He had that long run after the first possession, I think it was, when the running back, who had a lot to say, broke off that 60-something yard touchdown run. Then Pavia, I think it was the next possession, broke off a 30-40 yard run, and it was like, wow, here it comes all again. History is going to repeat itself. It was all looking, they're about to go up 14-0, and it was like, wow, here it comes again. And then it all kind of turned. That forced fumble on that third down play, they were at least going to settle for a field goal of 10-0. And that forced fumble was huge. And I think that was the drive that Alabama then drove the ball down. I think they may have tied the game on that next possession. Everything changed. It was huge for them to stop that momentum, because it felt like Vanderbilt was doing everything they wanted to do offensively against them. Everything was going for a positive play. There wasn't anything that was stopped. It was all kind of moving forward, little bit, big bit. And Alabama was on their heels. So I think that fumble was tremendous, obviously, in a number of ways. But yeah, I think after that, Alabama settled down a little bit. They scored again. That second Vanderbilt touchdown was on a short field. I think it was 38 yards. And even in that possession, I thought Alabama's defense was making progress. You could see strides, that they were forcing third down, thirds and longs. They were hitting those shovel passes. That was a final thorn that was bothering Alabama. But after that, it really felt like the Alabama defense kind of took control. It was a possession kind of game. It was a grinded out. It was a one possession game. It was 20-14 until the time of his second interception, that huge fumble, that huge interception, when looked like they were going to drive down, take the lead. Their only second half possession where they seemed to have any life, and then that interception pretty much ended the game.
Michael, I was watching the game. I was in the stands, but I was checking Twitter like everybody does, and I saw a lot of fire Kane Womack by halftime. Like, don't let him back on the field for the second half. And then Alabama makes adjustments. They come out. They look dominant on defense. Vanderbilt doesn't score. Pavia obviously looks very human. So what did you think of that reaction to Womack, and what did you think of his reaction to Vanderbilt?
I think they got after the quarterback a little bit more often. I think they were in Pavia's face anytime he was throwing the ball. Whether I don't know how many times he got sacked, but he had people in his face. He was forced to throw the ball early several times. He didn't look as comfortable in the pocket. Not that he's a big pocket passer, but when he did drop back, he was he was getting pressure. So I think that was tremendous. And yeah, I think that's a big answer for a lot of the Kane Womack people. I mean, I was wondering myself, those big plays, the big running plays where they sucked the safeties in and popped it with nobody over top. There was no one, there was no safeties, and there's no backstop back there to stop them. So yeah, I think it was a good adjustment. I think it was a big moment for him, because clearly a year ago that Vanderbilt game was one of the worst moments, the way they kind of got chopped up. So I think you know, a big redemption story against Vanderbilt for the Alabama defensive coordinator.
In Alabama, to the team itself, I mean, 2 years in a row would have been really bad, in spite, even though they beat Georgia the week before. So Matt, I mean, again, sort of like sticking with the Pavia thing, right? Like trash talk, player trash talk. Like it wasn't just Pavia, right? Like he earned all the flack that he's getting now, certainly, but his teammates also engaged and said they were going to dominate Alabama. Even Ryan Williams on the Alabama side, he during the offseason, he said they wanted to kill an ant with a sledgehammer. Is trash talk or like bulletin board material, is it ever a good idea? I mean, it's obviously fun for us and the fans, but should players just always steer clear? Do you like it?
I would liken it to a form of gambling in a way, right? Like if you're uh, if you're far enough in a hole, right? Just if you're not starting with an advantage, I think it can be something that fires your team up, that instills a lot of confidence. And I think a lot more of it happens, by the way, than the public is typically aware of. I think that's the real difference we're talking about, is talking trash publicly. But I think there's probably a lot of this going on within locker rooms, of just guys, whipping each other into a frenzy. And I think for the most part, Alabama seemed restrained about it going into this game this week. But you could tell at the end of this game, the Alabama players were not shy about finding cameras and letting you know that this one felt good to them, and it was a bit of a release for them, which to me indicates they had been paying attention, and they'd probably been saying some stuff of their own internally throughout the week. But look, I think in terms of the public side of it, I think it's something that you do when you need attention on your program. I think, we saw a great example of it in the offseason, which Michael alluded to in his column, from Florida State. I think it was a program nobody was really paying that much attention to. I don't think anybody really thought that they were going to come out of the gate and get a huge win like that. And I think to some degree, doing that puts you on people's radars. So it makes more sense, I think, for underdogs to do a little trash talking than it does for the favorites. But that said, if it doesn't work out, you have to be prepared to eat it. And look, for the most part, from what I've seen after this game, once he got off the field, I think Diego Pavia has largely uh, taken responsibility for what happened in the game, and as he should. He's eating it appropriately.
Yeah, and I mean, he said that just like Alabama, the national championship is still right in front of Vanderbilt. So if they take care of business, Vandy's in the playoffs. So speaking of after the game, our cameras caught a moment when Pavia and his teammates were leaving the field. A bit of a heated exchange with an Alabama fan. It's unclear the exact context, but it just appears to be some pretty par for the course trash talk between an angry fan and Diego Pavia, who gave a little bit back to the fan on his way back into the locker room. Michael, thoughts on that moment? Is anyone at fault here? We see this in sports all the time.
Yeah, no, social media was fun with this. I think I mentioned something about my tweet was it's hard to talk as much as he did than to get rabbit ears after the game, and get sensitive when getting heckled. And maybe it's my fandom of New York sports and going to games in Yankee Stadium and hearing horrific things said to athletes, that didn't bother me as much. I thought it was kind of par for the course. I thought, usually, like I mentioned to somebody else, that I take the athlete side in this, where when people rush the field and people get in an athlete's face, a player's face, uh, try to provoke them. I think all rules are off. I think you can do whatever you want to that at that point. But the fan who stayed in the crowd, he was hollering at Pavia, and you know, I think it's all fair game. Yeah, a lot more that happens than when there aren't cameras around. And there were also cameras capturing some of the things that he did before the game, certain gestures to the crowd that may have been alluded to in that fan's um, monologue to Pavia as he was coming off the field. So it's all fair game.
Yeah, you're being generous, man. Monologue is a fine word for it, but and to Pavia too, gestures and you know, I heard a guy behind Pavia, a Vandy person, teammate, somebody with the team, saying, "You're yelling at a kid. You're yelling at a kid." And I just some of my favorite comments in our posts and other posts was Pavia's in his mid-20s. He's a grown man. He's also and a good point from people. I mean, like he's well compensated for what he does out there too. So like college and amateur athletics, we all know has changed. Matt, what did you think of that moment?
Well, I would say I think regardless of how Pavia handled it and and regardless of whether he's old enough to sign a contract and have a mortgage at this point, I don't think you're ever going to look good as a fan doing that. When you're to me, being a fan at a game, I see as being you are part of the collective. You are one of 100,000 people there trying to make noise, and if you're ever individually able to be picked out of that crowd, you've probably done something wrong in that situation. You don't want to be Steve Bartman. You don't want to be the guy getting brought out of the stadium in handcuffs because you got carried away. You don't want to be the guy that runs out on the field. Don't be the one fan everybody remembers from the game. And I mean I also think that front section in particular, it's really the only part of Bryant-Denny Stadium where you can have that kind of interaction. Because for the most part, that stadium, unlike a lot of other college stadiums, is sort of built to create a little bit more separation between the field and the fans. Uh, but you know, like I mean, look, Michael and I have covered plenty of games in places. I mean, it's the case at Auburn, it's the case at Florida to some degree, and there's a number of stadiums where those fans are right on top of the action. You are well within earshot of a lot of them when you're on the field playing. And I think we've heard from players before. I'm sure you have, Michael, right? Where they say like I could hear what they were saying to me specifically the entire game, but I mean, it doesn't really happen that much at Alabama, just mainly for architectural reasons.
Yeah.
Two additional thoughts. I don't know if that fan did the calculus to think about the cameras who were there. I don't know if he
Right.
thought he was going to be cutting a highlight film of himself. And B, I think if I'm the security firm who is staffing that game, I think they might want to find a guy that's a little bit more aggressive, maybe a younger gentleman who can box out because there wasn't a whole lot of effort going on from the yellow jacket who was there to keep the peace.
Yeah, Grampy Santa Claus there. I mean, like just talking about the way the guy looked, I'm sure he's great at his job, but I mean, the
Hey
man had a
man,
long white
listen,
beard.
I'm not going to go after security. Those
I'm
guys
not
are
going
there.
after him, I'm just saying what he looked like.
Those guys, those guys are there to stand on at a specific place, and I'm sure they are told, "Hey, just be here. We just need bodies here. That's it."
He look, man, he did his job. But
Yeah,
yeah, look, I mean, there are no winners ultimately in exchanges like that. It's just part of sports. The guys are passionate, fans are, players are, so people are going to shout stupid things, and that's what happened. And thankfully, nobody got hurt. Nobody like jumped the railing or anything. But yeah, it gets scarier and scarier because I mean, look at the Virginia game. Look at when they stormed
right.
the field in Charlottesville. I mean, there was no barrier whatsoever, and those players just get swallowed up in a stampede of fans. So you have to be thankful when there's any barrier at all.
I will say, I think probably the only correct response in a situation like that, if you're Pavia, is to laugh at it and move on, right? Like because there's nothing. This guy can't do anything to you. He is yelling from the stands. and you lost. So like I think you gotta just sort of laugh it off and say this is such a weird part of this job that I have. I think engaging with him, there's first of all, you're not going to get anything out of it positive, and I think you do come off looking. I mean, it's that like you don't want to see that you don't want the opponent to see that you're upset, that it made you mad and it got to you. And I think that's kind of what you're doing there when you have that reaction.
I am not mad. Don't put in the newspaper that I was mad. I was definitely
Right.
not mad.
Well, I mean, back to the game itself. It was good to see Jan Miller look like Jan Miller again. He was excellent, ran for more than 130 yards. Obviously, had that garbage time touchdown that put the game well out of reach with just a few seconds left. We talked about Alabama's defense getting stops that they needed. Uh, Ty Simpson, obviously, another like headline here. I mean, he looked human, right? He threw his first pick of the season on the first drive of the game when Alabama was driving, but he looked great again. He threw for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was surgical. Michael, I'm going to take a breath here. Do we start using the H word with Ty Simpson? Like, I think it's silly when people declare Heisman contenders and front runners preseason, let alone week one, but it obviously does happen. But, rather than anointing somebody for how they play during like the last week of the season or even the conference championship game, it really should be about a player's body of work. And Ty Simpson is building that right now. Do you think Simpson has done enough to at least be part of that conversation just 5 games into the season?
I mean, it's all for giggles at this point. I mean, we could talk about Heisman stuff all you want, but we all know that the final few games is where this thing is decided. I mean, he can put himself in position. He can put himself. I think he's third in the gambling odds for whatever that's worth right now. But there's so much football to play. He's done after Florida State. He's done nothing but help himself in that cause. The way he's played, the way he's led. I think if this was a first half Heisman, he'd be right up there just for what he did at Georgia, the way he led that game against Georgia, and what he did against Vanderbilt. I mean, Georgia, they couldn't really run the ball. If he wasn't throwing the ball, if he wasn't accurate the way he was, they don't win that game. So, hands down, definitely he should be in that consideration. But the way he throws that ball across the middle, he does the things. He's very different from Jalen Milroe. This offense is very different from what he was a year ago. But the way, it was a weakness a year ago. The intermediate passes, the across the middle, the outs, anything that really wasn't a deep pass, and that's a strength of Ty Simpson. He really guns the ball in there for those across the middles, those third down plays. Especially, it seems like those third down, you need to pick it up. I think a year ago there was, you weren't too sure, but I feel like there's more confidence that even a third and long that he could do it. And I think that's a huge calculus, a huge change for how you approach Alabama and how you watch them and how you defend them.
I mean, it was 2nd and 20, 1st and 20 at various points, and Alabama was able to convert pretty overwhelming down and distance there for impressive offensive drives. It was amazing. Look, he's been outstanding, and you're right. Like, first half of the season doesn't matter ultimately in that conversation. The guy that I always think of is Geno Smith when he was at West Virginia several years ago, like most accurate quarterback in the nation, dominant. I mean, his stats were incredible, like nothing we'd ever seen, and he was the Heisman winner. He was declared as much by the media, and then he just kind of like fizzled because you got to watch the rest of the season play out. So that could happen for Ty Simpson too, and it certainly doesn't get any easier for him in Alabama. But Matt, I mean, are you as impressed with Ty Simpson as seemingly everybody else is?
I'm really impressed. And I think even though Alabama struggled a little bit in the red zone in this game, there really wasn't a lot of issues moving the ball down the field. I mean, there were not a lot of short, three and out drives for Alabama. They were able to largely execute against a very good Vanderbilt defense for the entire game. I think one other thing that I think is working in Ty's favor here, if you just want to talk about who has the best opportunity to win the Heisman out of these sort of candidates that we're talking about right now, you know, it's the same reason why it's going to be hard for him to win it. But Alabama still has a number of games that will be heavily watched and will be considered very impressive wins if Alabama can get through them. And I think that's one thing that some of these other candidates don't have. You look at Oregon's schedule right now, they really don't have a lot of big games left on this schedule before the Big Ten championship game. And I think some of the other names that have come up, that is, especially the way I don't want to get into a whole thing about the Big Ten schedule, but boy, I mean, when you start going through some of the contenders' schedules, I mean, Ohio State doesn't really have a lot of exciting looking games left on the schedule. Are people going to get blown away? Are Heisman voters going to get blown away when you beat Indiana? I just don't see it happening. And Ty's going to have an opportunity. Look, Missouri, I don't think is ever going to grab a ton of headlines, but they're a good team right now. They are ranked. They're going to be able to play Tennessee. They're going to play Oklahoma still, and they're going to play LSU. And those games are all going to get attention, as is the Iron Bowl, regardless of what Auburn's record is at that point. That's always a heavily watched game nationally. And then we'll see what happens after that. But another opportunity potentially, if things keep going well, for Alabama to play a highly ranked opponent in a game that lots of people are paying attention to. I think if you're a gamer, right? If you're one of those guys who believes in his own ability, Ty has more opportunities to impress people for the remainder of the season than I think a lot of his fellow contenders for that trophy.
Let me just say, if he goes undefeated, if he wins the rest of his games, he will be holding that trophy. I don't think there's any
You think
unless
over
he gets
somebody
hurt.
like Julian Sand from Ohio State or something like that, where it's I mean they're so highly thought of as a program, regardless of who they're playing
They're
every
winning a lot
weekend.
with their defense. Their defense is more.
Yeah,
I think Ty Simpson will have to carry. If they were to win out, he would be carrying a much higher burden, much higher, you know, much more beyond his shoulders necessary than Julian saying. Just hypothetically,
sure.
He's got the stats too. Like, I mean, and Heisman is a stat award, and if Alabama wins those games, like Michael is saying, Ty Simpson will be the reason. Ty Simpson has been the reason so far that Alabama has won most of their games. They're a complete team, and there's a lot of talent top to bottom, but they needed quarterback to work more than any other position on the roster, and he has delivered beyond people's expectations so far. So, Michael, we said that Georgia was a huge win for Kalin Deboer. Everybody knows that for obvious reasons, but he did that last year. Alabama rode this wave of beating the SEC's best team. Then they suffered this massive letdown, obviously, in losing to Vanderbilt the next week. They needed to prove that they could handle the success this time and beat what many considered to be an improved Vandy under Clark Lee and obviously led by Diego Pavia. And they answered the bell. What did this win mean for Kalin Deboer?
a lot because it would have been all if they were to lose that again, like the Georgia game would have been wiped away again, just like it was a year ago, and it'd have been the worst that you could have is the same disaster kind of happened twice. People to notice a pattern or to sense a pattern that this is where this is going to go. They're going to beat Georgia. They're going to lose to Vanderbilt. They're just not good enough. They can't sustain it. And Missouri presents another. There's no let up, and that's kind of what I wrote about. Part of what I wrote about on Sunday was there's no let up in the schedule. Every team they play in the SEC has either been ranked or is ranked, and three of those teams top 10 teams. So there's no Missouri's undefeated. Uh, they haven't necessarily played the same caliber of schedule as some of these teams, but they're undefeated on the road. So there's all kinds of moments. There are all kinds of tripwires set up for Alabama as this season progresses. But uh, if you can keep checking boxes, if you can keep exercising these demons, that's there are three regular season ones that Tennessee maybe not as much. That might be more understandable, but Oklahoma is another one that you can get. But there's nothing on that schedule that's easy. Even though the worst team on that record wise is Auburn on the road, which we all know the house of horrors that place can be. So there's Eastern Illinois is the one opportunity to really get out the voodoo doll and do some work. But it's going to be a really interesting final stretch of the season. The whole season's been fascinating to me to see how they adjust to all kinds of things. And this Missouri game, there's no break. There's no break in this season.
Matt, you called Jordan Hare a portal to hell at one point. Michael just called it a house of horrors. So, I mean, the hits just keep on coming. So let's just quickly focus on Missouri since you brought it up, right? Our friend and colleague and graduate of nowhere in particular, Nick Kelly, said Missouri is a trap game, the phrase that he used, right? And you put it perfectly. Doesn't get any easier for Alabama. It's going to be hard the rest of the way. A lot of ranked teams left on the schedule, but this trip to Columbia and an 11 a.m. kick is first. Matt, do you agree with Nick? Is Missouri a classic trap game?
Well, I mean, weirdly, it's weird to say this, but coming off of the Vanderbilt game, I think it's susceptible to the same thing that happened to Alabama last year going for Vanderbilt, right? Like they are coming off a game that they clearly cared a lot about and put a lot of attention on and focus into, and the natural inclination after you've worked really hard for a stretch of time is to relax, to exhale a little bit and say, all right, we got through the thing we were worried about. Well, as much of a problem as Vandy was to prepare for, we still know Alabama's run defense has been a problem for them at times. It was against Vanderbilt for stretches of that game too. Missouri has arguably the toughest ground attack offensively that Alabama will have faced so far this season, and that's gonna be a test for them. They're gonna have to, preparation wise, this week is going to require as much focus and intensity as the last 2 weeks have, and that's tough. It's tough to get your head around that, I think, and especially the further into the season we get, they're looking for a break, whether they're aware of it or not. And this is tough. I mean, look, I think the one thing they've got going for them, not that it was a problem at Athens, the offensive line seemed to have really no real communication issues in that game, which was a very promising sign. But, and I'm going to sound like Nick Saban here, Missouri is not the most intimidating road atmosphere to play in. So they
Bulletin
don't have.
board material, Matt. Give
I
it
mean,
to them.
I think it's lovely that they have that little end zone where they all have a picnic and sit on blankets and stuff. That's really
They're
cute.
reconstructing that. That's not there anymore. They're
Oh, it's
building something
gone?
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Pay
Good
attention.
for them. But yeah, in all seriousness, I mean, when you can get a road game on your schedule that isn't Baton Rouge, Auburn, Neyland Stadium, things like that, where the crowd truly becomes a factor in the game, I think that's an advantage you got to be happy with. 11 a.m. kick is, people get worried about those things. I don't know. I've never heard a player specifically
That's
talk
an edge
about it,
for a
but
road team. The road team wants the early kick as opposed to the late kick.
because you don't
So,
have to hang out in a hotel all day, I
and
guess.
it's
Yeah.
not nighttime. It's not, they haven't been pickled in their drinks all
Right.
day. That's
Yeah, I mean, I think those aspects of it are less intimidating for Alabama. But I mean, just in terms of on the field between the lines of this game, this is going to be a challenge for them. They had a dominating win against Missouri a year ago when they really needed one, on both sides of the ball. So I think the you wonder how much carryover there is matchup wise between that game and this game. But Alabama's got a lot to prove in this game, I think. And look, everything we've just been talking about, this is an opportunity for Alabama to show they can do it consistently. That Alabama can continue to operate this offense and hit their wide receivers in devastating downfield fashion for a long stretch of time. I think they've got a lot more work to do on the running game, even though they had a promising game with Jam Miller here. But you can always get better at that and get more consistent with it. And defensively, I think is where this is going to be where they can prove the most, and show that they can control and hold down a very effective ground game.
Ahmad Hardy, outstanding running back. He's going to present a lot of challenges to Kane Womack again, and got a talented quarterback. Eli Drinkwitz is a good coach. I think he's a good coach, and he's going to have them ready at home. They'll want revenge after getting shut out by Alabama last year in Tuscaloosa, so it's going to be tough. and they're ranked for a reason, and the rest of these teams are all ranked for a reason on the rest of the schedule. So one battle after another, right, Matt? We are going to shift gears here to close ESPN College Game Day. They were in town again. It was gosh, I've lost count how many times they've been in Tuscaloosa at this point, like 21, I think, 20 or 21. But, there was some controversy. I don't know if that's the right word, but anyway, some conversation around who the guest picker was. It was Theo Von, the famous comedian and podcaster. Real quick, Michael, what did you think of Theo Von in the picker chair this weekend?
He was fine. Good.
You gonna leave it at that?
Little pink eye from Mishawaka. Good story from some dirty binoculars in Mishawaka one time. But yeah, I remember almost that was the only thing I remember from the entirety of the segment.
Oh man, I thought he was. I thought he was like you said. I thought he was fine. He had some really funny lines. My favorite line was when he said that Alabama lost to Vanderbilt last year because Kalin Deboer had the previous coach's players when Nick Saban was on the panel. That's a good line.
That's a good line.
Pretty solid. He brought good energy. I don't know. But I guess, Matt, the big conversation was really around what Reese Davis said about Theo Von going into the weekend, his explanation
for
why.
Exactly.
Why? Well, so basically he said Theo Von has 1 billion followers. He's funny. He connects with the fans and their audience. And then they got into this whole thing about why isn't there an Alabama connected picker instead? And Reese Davis also said Nick Saban is connected to Alabama and he's on every week. You don't hear people complaining about that. And Davis caught a little bit of flack from fans. Some people thought that was a little tone deaf in the sense that Kirk Herbstreit's on every week, but whenever y'all go to Columbus, Ohio, you've got an Ohio State connected picker in that chair. So I think, look, they want to book the most famous, relatable person, engaging person that they can every single week. It doesn't matter who they are. If Alabama had somebody with the following and popularity that Theo Von does, at least with their audience, and they were readily available that Saturday, then they would book them, right? They just happened to have Theo Von available that week.
You don't know who they asked and who couldn't do it. There could have been there could have been somebody who had all kinds of Alabama connections, was drenched in houndstooth, and the schedules didn't align. Celebrities have a lot of stuff going on.
I am all for having the best possible guests, whether they're connected to the school or not. I want the show to be fun, and it should be fun for the crowd that's there too, to some degree. But I think one of the ones people talk about the most as being one of the most sort of memorable, fun guest pickers was when they had Katy Perry on for Ole Miss. No connection there. That's just a fun thing to do if you can pull it off. My gripe about this is a lot more just sort of an old man gripe, which is that we used to have real celebrities, Ben. We used to have pop stars. We used to have movie stars coming on these things. And now it's like a guy that was on a reality show 25 years ago, and he's got a podcast now, which, as we are evidence of, they'll give these things to anybody. Okay.
Yeah, podcasters are nobody special.
No, but I mean, I get that he's a comedian. It's just like we can't like glam it up a little bit. We can't like bring in sort of different audiences to this show instead of just. I mean, that's what they do with the Super Bowl halftime show. It's like they're not gonna pick somebody that their fan base is the people who are already watching this, right? Like the get Timothy Chalamet back on there, who like, by the way, was praised for how good his ball knowledge was, and he had fun with it. He was having a good time, and that's a legitimate movie star that people know even if they don't watch college football. But whatever, man. Theo Von, I'm sure we'll have Miss Rachel on next week, and a bunch of other
I'd watch Miss Rachel.
YouTube stars or whatever. But I fully acknowledge that's an old man gripe. I don't want to see internet stars on my TV. I want to see TV and movie stars on my TV.
They couldn't get Puck from the Real World San Francisco to come on. Like they had Theo Von from Road Rules. I forget which Road Rules season he did, but he was on the MTV Challenge too. Challenge champion, I think.
What's Snooki doing these days?
Dwayne Johnson didn't want to promote the Smashing Machine on game day in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I mean, you're a movie studio, Disney. You own ESPN. Put some of your movie stars on your TV show.
I mean, they just got 10 minutes of us talking about their show. I think this worked. I think this worked. I think they negged all of you guys into to caring. Everyone watched to see how much they would hate Theo Vaughn, and guess what? Everyone watched.
Like I said, if Alabama had somebody with his exact following and they were there, they would have booked them. I
don't have a gripe with the not having somebody with an Alabama connection. I don't. People need to get over that. Alabama is not a school that turns out celebrities. It's just not. It's not happening on a regular basis.
I'm looking at 2 non-celebrities right now. Alabama turned out.
That's right.
I think they should. My last minute pick. They should have flown out Mac Jones. He was the most famous NFL player for like 48 hours. And you know, if Kirk Herbstreit can fly from LA to Tuscaloosa after calling that exact game, so can Mac Jones. But anyway, it all worked out. Like you said, everybody was talking about it before he even set foot on the stage, and here we are, just a couple of days later. So. Anyway, guys, I appreciate it as always. He's Michael Casagrande. Read his work on AL.com, plus all of our Alabama football coverage. Michael, thank you. And he is Matt Scalisi, Beat Everyone producer. And you can find Beat Everyone on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. Thanks, everybody.